Welcome to the Christianity in Business podcast with host Darren Shear, an initiative of the Archie W. Dunham College of Business at Houston Baptist University. This is the show that helps Christian business leaders to integrate biblical values into business. You can get more information about the HBU Center for Christianity in Business and sign up to receive free access to all 5 issues of the Christian Business Review Journal by visiting our website at christianityinbusiness.com.
On today's episode, we'll be discussing the value of a marketplace chaplain, and we're joined by Jason Brown. Jason is the Chief Marketing Officer for Marketplace Chaplains USA. He came to Marketplace Chaplains in 2002 with 20 years of sales and marketing experience that includes Procter & Gamble. He was the National Sales Manager for Wrangler Outerwear and also Computer Resale Technologies. And so he's definitely an expert in that Wrangler market because he was a professional athlete, won the 1991 World Champion Saddle Bronc Rider title, and also served as the rodeo's national spokesman coordinator. Jason, you going to be saddling up for the Houston Rodeo coming up here in a couple of months?
No, 1991 was my last year when I broke my leg for the 5th time in Mobile, Alabama. And my wife said that was my former life. So I might watch it on TV every now and then, but that's about it, Darren.
Man, that was my first rodeo. I think I mentioned to you, I went a year ago, and I was just amazed at what those bodies go through on the backs of those animals. My goodness. I'll just go ahead and let you know the website is mchapusa.com. And I'll mention that again at the end of the interview, but excited to have you on. Welcome to the Christianity in Business podcast, Jason.
Thank you, Darren. It's always a pleasure. We spoke several years ago, and a lot of things happening in the workplace. The Faith at Work movement is growing exponentially with more speed. It seems like every week, coast to coast and border to border. So we're excited to just be a part of that.
Man, it's exciting. And you guys really are right in the epicenter of that. So what is Marketplace Chaplains for those of our listeners who aren't familiar, and what's the role of a Marketplace Chaplain?
Yeah, good question. We started in '84. A simple model of chaplaincy. People and the listeners may be familiar with a chaplain in a hospital, maybe the military. Sports teams have chaplains, and even our U.S. Congress has a chaplain, and they really need a chaplain. But chaplains in the workplace are simply frontline caregivers that company leaders bring in. They partner with us because the chaplains are our employees. But it's simply a way to tangibly say, we care about you, not only as an employee, but as a person, and we value you, and we're providing this resource because so many people today, Darren, are disconnected, not only from any local church. I think the stats now are near up 80% are not regularly connected. But we also are disconnected from community and groups and people. We have a lot more communication on all these personal devices and iPhones and text and all this stuff, but there's really no relationship. And we're just seeing more and more companies reach out to us because they want to bring back that human spirit and life into companies that's become so sterile and process-oriented. And, it's such a performance-based society that it's what can you do? You're just an EIN number. But smarter companies, and some, we serve 6 public companies. So it doesn't matter what kind, just employees, are a company's really only asset when you think about it, and they bring problems to work and they need help dealing with those. And then there's unfortunately a lot of crisis events in individual people's lives, but here recently even some national events everyone's aware of, especially you in Houston with the hurricanes and the flooding, and then the recent shootings in Vegas. I'm seeing emails today from our chaplains in Las Vegas that are helping at the funeral homes, and some of our leaders have had to come in from Phoenix to provide some support. So it's just a frontline caregiver, and we use the team out there to help employees and help businesses.
Wow. And it's something you said really struck a chord with me when you were talking about how more and more people are disconnected. They just don't have those supportive relationships in their life. I mean, when something like a disaster happens, such as a natural disaster, or God forbid, these shootings that just happen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if that's you, what options do you have? Where do you turn? You're not connected. You don't know people in a church. I mean, people barely know their neighbors nowadays.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not hard to see the role that a marketplace chaplain plays, or at least the need that exists there. Could you share maybe an example? So somebody, maybe they have a certain view of what a chaplain is, like they give out communion or something like that.
Right.
But what does that actually look like? What is that role of a marketplace chaplain, and maybe a real world story?
Yeah, I think the two quick things you said. You might think of the need for a chaplain in the workplace for crisis and events and things. A family member dies and you don't know what to do. Somebody gets the cancer diagnosis. Oh, my world's caved in. What do I do? That's about 15% of what we have. Nearly 1,500 chaplains, Darren, that are making 3,800 different worksite visits this week to all kinds of companies. But mostly what they're doing is talking to and listening and helping people with personal problems. The rebellious teenager, the grandmother in the senior living home, financial problems in their marriage, whatever it may be. But some people may think, when they think of chaplain, oh, it's a church at work or a religious program, and it's really not. Yes, we're faith-based. All of our chaplains are Christians, but we've positioned this, and why we're able to work in public companies and some municipalities and for a railroad and in all kinds of settings is we provide an employee care service. So companies partner with us to provide this level of care and support to their people. So, just looking at a story the other day, a female employee, she's a single mom. The female chaplain had gone by every Tuesday and said hello. They kind of knew each other. And then one day the teenage daughter was rebelling. She was doing bad in school, had gotten some tickets, was depressed. There was anger. And the female employee said, Chaplain, could you help me? I'm at my wit's end with my daughter. And the chaplain said, well, sure. What can I do? Could we meet? And so they had some meetings at the employee's home, and then the chaplain made a teenage daughter, encouraged her, got her some baby steps and little words of encouragement, some scripture, some devotions, also helped the mom reinforce it, as she met with her at the office, and gave her more things to talk to her daughter about, and where there was more communication. And it was about an 8-month process, but now the relationship's restored, the dog better, they're attending church, and she's accepted Christ. So that's the
Awesome.
Long-term role of helping people with problems, and that's a great spiritual ROI. But the other side too, for business owners that are looking, to how do I help my people? We got to do good as a company, and it's not I'm doing this just so I get somebody to 100% productivity, which isn't realistic. But if somebody's coming in the door every morning and they're carrying those burdens with them from home, and it may be a sensitive issue, they're embarrassed to share with a coworker, they don't want to tell HR, they're not going to call a hotline and talk to a counselor or a psychologist or psychiatrist. But if somebody's able to share that and get some coping mechanisms, some encouragement, and see real positive wins in their life, and maybe with a family member, it just makes sense that they are appreciative of their company for providing that, but also they're more productive and aren't carrying those burdens in the forefront of their daily work.
Awesome. And Jason, you mentioned that with situations like disasters and things like that, that might be about 15% of the work that these chaplains are and the needs of these chaplains are responding
Right.
to. And I know you've got the app and you're measuring a lot of these different things and the reasons why people are reaching out to the chaplains. Are there other percentages that you have, like, for example, what percentage would workers who have issues with maybe wayward children, or they're struggling with their children, that reach out to the chaplain for that, or they've got a conflict with another coworker, or do you have that sort of a breakdown of why they're reaching out to the chaplains?
Yeah, a couple of fronts on that. In the HR benefit type world, you might consider that a usage rate. Most people are familiar with those 800 number EAP hotlines that kind of come with your healthcare package. Darren, the national average usage rate of those is like 2 to 9%. And you think about it, somebody's got to be in a pretty bad corner in life to call an 800 number to someone they don't know. Thankfully, they get used, but sometimes they're used at the last minute, last ditch resource. But when you have that, the David Weekly Holmes Cares chaplain team that's making those visits and building those relationships of trust and confidence, people will be more apt to open up something when it's an issue or a problem before it turns into a crisis. And so our studies show after the first year, we see between 50 and 80% usage rates of employees, which is unbelievable.
That's amazing.
And we track all the issues that are talked with, of course, confidentially. There's no names or pictures or photos, but, company owners and HR departments, they're like, I wasn't really sure anybody was going to use this, and they see the reports like, 80 worksite visits were made, 5 hospital visits, they attended 7 funerals, they did a funeral. They visited a jail of a cousin of an employee. They visited a grandmother in a senior living community out in St. Louis. They were engaged this many times. There was, 140 discussions about marriage and family, 13 about parenting, 20 about stress. They're just blown away by the usage that occurs. Darren, about every 4 minutes of every workday, an employee is reaching out to one of our chaplains. So it's increasing. The usage is really going through the roof, and especially during these crisis times as well. They incite a lot of people to start, thinking about what's important in life rather than just making more money in another house and another car and, all the material things in life.
Wow. That usage is incredible. So in addition to the usage, what are maybe some of the findings that you present to a typical CEO of maybe a large size company that really surprises them besides the usage itself?
Yeah, what that translates into are the intangible factors that cause things like turnover, tardiness, absenteeism, theft and fraud, lack of teamwork, safety compromises. If you really dig into the root causes of those problems, those are just the manifestations and stuff. The root of the problems, what you got to look at. And when you trace those back, a lot of it's down to personal issues and problems that people have that they don't know how to cope with. They think they're in a corner in life and they only see the wrong way out. So we have companies that, have noticed we've cut their turnover in half, which is huge because it costs so much to identify and recruit and train and hire and get somebody else up to the productivity level of the person that left voluntarily. Even, like Department of Labor and SHRM studies, half the people that leave voluntarily, they leave just because they didn't feel. It's not money or salary or benefits. Those are usually, I think, 7 or 8 on the list. It's number 1 is the employee's relation with their direct supervisor. Number 2, do they feel valued and cared for as a person, as an individual? And so we help on both those fronts. We had a large food company out of the Midwest and a distribution company do a study on presenteeism, and they've seen a dramatic decreasing that, and basically saying, that aspect alone pays for the program itself, the service. Presenteeism, people come into work, but they're really disengaged. They're not thinking about work. They're thinking about this problem at home, that rebellious teenage daughter, my finances, the world situation, should I go to the public event next week after what happened in Vegas? They're just not engaged. So a myriad of things. Most CEOs and HR people, when they call each other for a reference, they'll say, don't try to pencil it out like another program and do an Excel spreadsheet. It's the right thing to do, and it'll bring back more returns than you ever thought of. And most HR departments are happy to have the support and the relief. They have so many details to carry out and compliance issues and all that. As much as they would love to help employees with personal problems, but as the companies grow from 5 people to 50 to 250 in 8 locations across the country, it's just physically and logistically impossible to do.
Sure. And I mean, it might not be a hurricane. They might not have had their house flooded out and lost everything. I mean, obviously, if something like that happens, as it has with many thousands of people here in Houston and really all over the country in this coastal southeast Gulf Coast area, I mean, that people are having these maybe. It might seem insignificant to somebody else, but
it's the hurricane in their life.
Exactly. And when a hurricane happens in your life, metaphorically speaking or literally speaking, you're not thinking about a whole lot else. So, I mean, just from a productivity standpoint, it's just so clear that if you don't help people resolve some of those, or at least feel heard and valued,
exactly.
And those things. I mean, they're bringing those things into the workplace, and to have that chaplain, which, I remember in the military anyway. For me, I think we had one chaplain probably for about maybe every 400 people. Something like that.
Was that a brigade chaplain at that level? Yeah.
Yeah. I was in a squadron. We had one chaplain, and I think we had 5. We had one of the larger squadrons on the base, but it was a little over 500 people. I mean, how's one chaplain going to care for 500 people? I mean, what is that ideal ratio for chaplains to employees?
We try to not assign any chaplain more than about 200 employees, and that's why we use the team approach. And always a male and a female. Female chaplains work with females, and male chaplains work with male chaplains and couples. But it's also not only the gender. We look at the ethnicity. Like Pilgrim's Pride, the chicken processing company. 60% of their employees are Hispanic. So 60% of our 320 chaplains that serve all those complexes are Hispanic, not only for the language barriers, Darren, but also just for culture, because for the family members. And many times when the chaplain's asked to come help in a family situation, the other family members may not be bilingual, but also that chaplain would understand that culture and can make a much deeper connection quicker.
And I would think that this app has really enhanced the usage of the chaplain services. I mean, thinking back to the military, I mean, like, how do you reach out to a chaplain? I mean, you literally have to get in your car and drive down to see the chaplain, because it wasn't just that they were the chaplain for typically it was a group chaplain. So they were not only responsible for our squadron of 500, but we're talking more. I want to say there might have been 12 other squadrons that they were responsible for in a group, in an Air Force group, which, it is just massive. So with the app, they can just download it on their phone. And this is a company benefit. I would think when they kind of get hired on, that's part of the in-processing. Is that right? They get the app on their phone. And then, hey, if you ever have an issue, Joe, or Susan or Hector, whoever it is, just reach out to the chaplain through this app. I mean, sounds pretty simple.
Yeah. Two things, like you had to get in your car and go see the chaplain. The first thing is we're making those worksite visits, so your company's chaplain care team are going to the people proactively. So there's a chance to use it. But then to supplement that, rather than having to find the business card or call them on the cell phone, at each location, every employee can download for free from the App Store the MyChap app. And then, so let's look at that, that auto dealer with 150 employees. There's maybe 3 or 4 chaplains assigned to there. Those employees put in a code one time, and then from the back end, we load those 4 chaplains onto that app. And so, every time an employee turns on their phone, there's the icon there for the app, and they can choose one of their chaplains, and they can text them, they can call them, they can email them, just a resource, or schedule an appointment. And that's every employee. And then where the other benefit is, Darren, more and more people are able to work from home. They're remote, they're over the road, they're field employees, where we can't just go and meet and see them every week. So we're able to deploy this to those employees and then proactively push messages and words of encouragement and things to field employees to let them know they're connected and valued. And then it's real easy for them to pop back and say, hey, would you pray for me today? My wife's going in for a biopsy, or those type of things. So yeah, technology is good, it's bad, but we use it for the good to make connections easier in this fast-paced society. So we're actually seeing a lot of good ministry and back and forth, especially with the younger generation who's used to communicating that way. And a lot of our senior chaplains have really enjoyed that, because they're not, just getting the chance to listen and share and provide care and hope. When they're at the work site, it's happening at all times of day now, and over text and email. So that's kind of exciting.
And so are the chaplains, are they providing things like marriage counseling and things like that? And how qualified are these chaplains that are working for the company?
Yeah, we're only as good as our chaplains. Most of our chaplains have advanced degrees, many theological degrees. Some come out of the military, others hospitals. They have to have a calling. They've got to love people and understand the workplace to be a workplace chaplain. But what we do, we don't technically call it counseling. That gets you into a whole nother area. Even though some of our people have those degrees, but we stay in that frontline role of a chaplain, kind of like triage and frontline support. Not the long-term 6 month of counseling, but what we're able to do is, for those companies that have those benefits already there, we help connect employees to things the company already has, and then encourage people to take advantage of them, help them through that process, et cetera. But yeah, we do a lot of premarital discussions. One of the number one issues that employees talk to the chaplains about is marriage and family. So you can call it counseling in an esoteric general sense, but not technically like from a licensed marriage counselor per se.
Gotcha. And so certainly one of the main objections that a business owner might have is, well, we don't have a budget for it or something like that. But once you get past the money issue, what are the most frequent objections you have to overcome to help these company leaders bring a marketplace chaplain in?
Sure. Real quick, first, money's really an issue. It's very inexpensive compared to other benefits and other things the company offers. And once we share, and if they're really looking at, there's sunk costs that are going out because of that absenteeism and retention and safety and all those things. It's less than the coffee service a month that they provide employees. So, they kind of get past that. So your next thing is, well, I can see the value of this and I believe in what you're doing, but you know what, Jason, we're a multicultural, diverse workforce, and we have people from all backgrounds, and I'm just not sure they'll use it, or, I don't know about this. And that's probably the next common thing that they want to know about or have to think through. And so, the truth is it's an employee care service, and the four tenets of it are, Darren, is we're neutral from company operations, so your chaplains aren't under the HR department. The employees get to choose if they want to engage the chaplains, what they want to talk about, when and where and how long. It's strictly confidential. We don't report conversations to HR, their supervisor, or a family member, or a coworker, and it's available to everyone. So, society wants to always look at the differences, and that we're real diverse and everybody's different. Well, we look at the commonalities. We focus on the human being, and I don't care if you're atheist, Methodist, or Muslim. You're worried about, do I have a job? Can I provide for my family? Are my kids going to make it through school? Can me and my wife get along better? Boy, I need some help with stress management. Work is really getting tougher. It's 18 hours a day. I'm getting texts and emails. I just need some help. And then those unexpected crises of life come up, and then I need some extra help or some direction or somebody just to walk through crisis with me. And I tell companies there, we're not the silver bullet. We're not going to fix every problem, and we're not really there to do that. And most people really need someone that's will listen empathetically and listen to understand, not listen to solve or judge or provide criticism, etc. People just want to know you really care about me unconditionally, and that's what we're able to bring. That's becoming more and more unique in this workplace society. So when the company chaplain says, "Hey, Darren, how are you today? My time is your time. How can I serve you today? What do you need?" And there's an open book, Darren, and there's no quid pro quo. There's no judgment. There's no sense of what I share could be told to someone else, and that's a rare commodity in today's society.
Yeah, and even if the leader of that company wanted to take the time to do all of those things, which I would hope that they do,
right?
They typically are not gifted in that area, because you really have to be gifted with a pastor's heart to really sit
Yes.
there and listen to somebody's, what they're going through. And I remember 3 years ago, Jason, when I interviewed you, you described it as a ministry of presence. This is not
that's right.
This is not like a transactional thing where I'm trying to get you back on track so you can work harder or something like that. Like, it's just being there for people because it's the right thing to do, and to hear them out. And at the same time, I know that companies like David Weekley Homes and others, like, they get heralded as the best companies to work
Best
for. I was
places to work.
interviewing Al Lopez from the Best Christian Workplaces Institute, and on the previous episode, and Marketplace Chaplains and having somebody providing that pastoral care is one of those things that these companies do that really want to attract top talent, and they want to retain not just like technology companies or something like that,
right.
but you just want to keep your people and cut down on that turnover. And having this service is just one of those things that really makes people want to be a part.
Well, it's a differentiator. Speaking of David Weekley, I remember a long time ago, somebody had wrote David and said, I was considering a couple of companies, and she was out on the East Coast, but she said, on your website, when I saw that you had a David Weekley Cares chaplain team, it set the tone for the level of integrity and morals expected from, your employees, and it was one of the items that attracted me to your company because it showed me you had a vested interest in my overall well-being, not just in what I could do for the company. And then going back to, if the company owner, the HR person, wanted to do that, well, a lot do. We can only extend, enhance, and broaden the level of care to that heartbeat of leadership. But there's still a glass ceiling. As great of a leader as people are in the HR department, as much as they care, there's just certain things employees are not going to bring to you because you're their boss or supervisor. And so there's that issue. The other issue is your role is to, make payroll and keep the company going and do things. So it's really a role. And when the chaplains come to the parking lot, they're really praying and looking for that divine appointment. Who is somebody that needs a positive, encouraging touch today? And then maybe somebody needs some extra help after work or in another state for the family member. The HR person or the CEO can't do that, but we can. And so we're just extending that heart of care. We're not displacing or replacing company care leadership or other employees that are helping others, but we just undergird that and fill in some gaps, and then encourage even believers to live out their faith at work and not try to, I don't got to be different here at work than I do at home.
Yeah.
So a
couple
of different fronts there.
As well as, you're bringing in another skill set that typically you yourself don't have. I mean, I know that
Correct.
This is not one of my skill sets, at least not one of my dominant ones. And so we need people around us that's what they do. I mean, I have fortunately close friends that are like that are pastors, they have those pastors' hearts. And, that's why this company was founded by a military chaplain, somebody that had that gift. It wasn't like somebody said, let's figure out how we can start a business and make some money. No. But this was a chaplain with a pastor's heart that was just, drawn to help people in this sort of a way, which has attracted all these other chaplains that have that same gift that they can serve people that way. You got to hire. You're not going to hire, IT. You're not going to hire maybe somebody that does HR to go do your, mechanical work or something like that.
Correct.
You're going to hire the right person for the right job.
Exactly. It goes back to that role and specialty, skill set, gifting, training. Our training is so huge these days. We have a large academy with over 100 continuing education modules because the workplace is changing so differently and rapidly with things the chaplains are going to be faced with. So trying to keep them sharp and encouraged and, having resource tools to use. It's a lot to do it right, especially in the workplace, because we're invited guests. It's not like that employee came to person's church or group or counseling office. We're on their workplace space, and so we have to be very respectful. But again, it goes back to role. I don't think there's a company we work for out of the over 800 companies we serve there, and that doesn't have that vision match. That's where it starts. That, hey, at the end of the day, it's about people. I want to care about them. We love them, help them. If it helps the business and, they have a better family life, I'm just glad, we can be a small part of that. That's really the heartbeat of the leaders we partner with. Yeah.
I mean, having studied what's going on, what God is doing in the marketplace over the last couple of years, having a marketplace chaplain has been one of those things that I've noticed is just, it's almost one of those, not to trivialize it, but almost one of those checklist items that this one of those kind of low-hanging fruit opportunities.
Easy.
If you want to use your company to bring glory to God, I mean, to bring in a marketplace chaplain is just such a practical, effective way to do that.
Greg Leith, the CEO at Convene, says it's the biggest no-brainer in business, and it's especially if you're a business leader that's a believer or something. It's give me one reason why you wouldn't do this. I mean, it's and that's what I share with people. We're not going to solve every problem, but you know what? Everybody's had the consultants, and they've got great mission and vision statements, and they got core values on posters. But I always say, okay, what are you doing with that? What's the investment? What's the translation down to the front lines to your people? What are you really doing? Well, we do a picnic and a Christmas party, and we allow them to do a Bible study if we want. I'm saying, no, what are you really doing? So, we're so specialized in employee care. We're not trying to do coaching or leadership or, setting up church or discipling. We're doing one thing really well, and it is a checkbox deal. Like, it's just a spoke in the wheel of tangible things companies can say, hey, we really do care about people. We even provide this service for not only the employees, but their family members nationwide and all the way through Mexico and Canada. So that's the positioning of it. And, I'm just dumbfounded why people, you asked earlier about some of the objections, and I tell you, one of the not strange, but unfortunate ones is like, well, I'm the CEO and the owner, but I'm also the chaplain. I'm going to chaplain my people, and I've got an open door, and I'm an elder at the church, and I know this, so I'm going to do that role. And I just kind of shake my head at that point. But great, they want to, and I hope successful, but you're still the boss.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's that idea that I hear, I'm going to be the CEO, so I'm going to be the pastor of my business. And I think that's where we've kind of lost the meaning of what a pastor shepherd is when we look at, like mega churches and that kind of thing. And the idea of a pastor has been equated with an executive, when really, when you look at what a pastor does, is takes care of the sheep.
Pastoral care.
And pastoral care, exactly. And so, if you don't have that skill set, even if you did have the skill set, you don't have the time, and there's just with the way the roles are defined in the company,
right,
there just is a lot of awkwardness and issues that come into play there. So, but I love that quote about it being the biggest no-brainer in business.
Yeah.
It's well said.
Eric's a good guy on that. Hey, I was just pulling out your book off my shelf here, Marketing Like Jesus, that you sent me and signed a couple of years ago. So you remember that one?
Awesome. Yeah, that's actually how we got connected. I think our mutual friend, Dr. Jim Harris, sent out an article, and then you responded to that article and said you had forwarded it over to your team. So,
yeah,
appreciate that.
Yeah, Jim's a great guy.
Indeed. So mchapusa.com is the website. Is that the best place for people to go to take next steps?
Yeah, and on both sides. Not only if you're a company leader and want to explore more, there's some good videos on there and testimonials, and there's a place, hey, I'm interested in what would a chaplain care team look like at my business? And we're into customization. We work with all kinds of companies. But equally as important, Darren, right now we have over 80 openings of chaplains across the nation with companies that have signed up, or locations out in Moab, Utah with 30 employees, and we need a chaplain to serve those employees. So we're always looking for people across the country that's like, wow, I've never known about this. This would be perfect. I can do this. So if you're interested in being a chaplain or having chaplain care for your employees, that's the best place to start.
Excellent. Jason, would you leave us with a parting piece of advice?
Yeah, the world is getting darker. It's tougher. Challenges face all of us, believers, non-believers, everyone. And there's only one true hope in the world, and it all goes back to Jesus at the end of the day. And your faith determines your beliefs, determines your values and actions. So they're not mutually exclusive. They're not independent. It all works together. And I would just encourage people to take a bold step and light dispels darkness. And God's given, especially business leaders, a huge platform to influence the world. If you're into the 7 mountains of culture and looking at it, the workplace is pretty wide open now, and there's a lot of religious freedoms and a lot of momentum in the Faith at Work movement, and it's time to capitalize on that. It's pretty tough in media and news and other areas that are tough. Education, it's tough to get a foothold for the kingdom, but if you're in the marketplace, God's moving in that in mighty ways. And I just encourage everybody to not be different in your personal private life than you are at work.
Well said. Jason, thanks so much for being so generous with your time and your expertise about what is happening among the needs of the people and in our workplaces, and just for the solution that you guys have been providing since 1984, right?
Yeah.
1984.
Exactly.
And it's just incredible. Love it. Just every time I think about what Marketplace Chaplains are doing, I just get so excited about it. And definitely would encourage our listeners to go and, maybe you're not the head of the company, but you have influence in that company. Talk to your HR department, be that person God uses to start bringing chaplains into your company, because you need to focus on your IT work. You need to focus on the job that you have to do, and certainly be a light to your coworkers. But there are people that can come into that company, into your company, and that's going to be what they do, is care for the needs of your coworkers. So thanks again. May God continue to bless you, your family, and Marketplace Chaplains.
I receive. Thank you so much, Darren. It's a privilege to be on your program again, and keep up the good fight. You do a great job out there.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if so, we would greatly appreciate it if you would leave us a quick rating and review for the Christianity and Business podcast on iTunes. You can get more information about HBU Center for Christianity and Business at christianityandbusiness.com. Thanks for listening, and remember to keep integrating biblical values into your business.